Hi, I'm Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio. In today's video I am working on a Bethlehem Star quilt, and I am working on designing the quilting for this quilt. Now these are stars that I had previously purchased. They were all stitched together but not appliqued to the background. So I got some white fabric and I hand appliqued them down, and now I have a lot of negative space, a lot of white space to quilt in. So I thought I would do feathers, and while I was thinking about this I went ahead and did a sketch of some different types of feathers. This is more of a whole cloth idea. I've got some squares, I've got a lot of borders, I have some triangle spaces and some more triangles over here, a few more squares up here. So I wanted to show you a few of those on this quilt, and then show you at the end what I've decided to do. Okay, one thing you will notice is that where these four stars come together makes a square, and where the squares come together, the blocks come together, it gives us some natural, these seam lines make natural dividing points here. So what I'm looking to quilt in is this section here. Now these aren't perfectly square, there's some wobbles in here from the applique. So the idea is to fill this space and kind of detract away from the fact that these are not perfectly square. So one of the things that we could do would be to look at this as four different squares coming together, and then we could quilt something in here. Let's see, I think I want to do this first. We're going to look at this, and we'll do a feather going up to the seam line. Have this oval as their center. You can use a lot of different shapes for centers of your feathers. You could use circles, you can ovals, you can use triangles, heart shapes, just about anything you can think of. And then you could put like a pearl in the center. And then in here you could double up this section to give some more negative space, and then you can fill this with pebbles or a meander. You could do a small stipple, you could do cross hatch, you could do a lot of things in here, and then repeat this in each one of these sections and just rotate it around, and it would be a real pretty effect. Another thing that you do, looking at this as a square, if you want to do an oval, you just have to decide how you want your oval to look. If you want it, let me do this section here. You can do it. You could do an oval like this, or you could do an oval this direction. But let's go with this one, and that's more egg-shaped than oval, but you kind of get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and double this up, and then these feathers are going to go all the way around. Now you can do whatever kind of feather you want. There's this is just a basic formal feather, but you can do all kinds of things in your feathers. Like you can come up with a little vein in there like this, and that gives it a little more dimension. And I would use a template to make these feathers, to make the centers for these feathers so that they're not quite so sloppy. They would be very symmetrical here. This is something that you might want to use as the whole block though, instead of just a small section like this. This one I think would look fine doing this in each one of these sections. This one I don't think would look quite as good. this one would look better as if you just did this whole section with the oval in the center. Okay, another thing for a block you could do is divide this in the center, and then we're going to do a feather, or do a pearl, and we're going to do our feathers, and I'm going to have them going out. You could make them go in, but they don't fit quite as well. So I'm going to feather out and go towards the center. And what throws this off is the right angle here. If your feathers are coming in, they're fighting against this corner, and if you have them going out, they reach out and they fill in really easily. And I use this method if I'm filling in triangles for feathers for like a triangle, like a setting triangle. I'll do the same thing. And then we're going to go out again on this side. And if you want to stitch in a spine here first, you can. If that helps you, that's perfectly fine. And then up at the top we can do a little pearl in the end. And then you can repeat this all the way around. It'll give you a real pretty feather. And then one other idea would be to do something like this, and then I would backtrack down and come and do my feathers in here. Leave yourself some space so you can go all the way around in here. And then you can backtrack down and come here and make these feathers as long or as short as you want. You could double up your spine and put pearls in your spine. I'm going to come around this direction. And just fill up that whole space. And one thing I'm going to show you over here. And those feathers get kind of long and skinny and they start looking a little awkward. Instead of continuing to fill them in as long feathers like this, I'm going to stop, make a small pearl, and then do another feather like this. Sorry, that one is not very pretty. Let's try that again. There we go. That's better. And see, that gives a little bit, actually a little more movement. It's a little prettier. I think I like that one. Now, if you want to look at this section as triangles instead of blocks, what if we divided this into 2 triangles? And make our little borders, and then we're going to divide this. One thing you can do is do a feather like this. And you're working in a pretty big space, so you can make your feathers bigger, you can make them fatter, you can make them longer. And then I'd make the feather come out this direction. Make it look a little more graceful than that, though. There we go. Now, one thing about feathers, they take time, they take a lot of thread, they take up a lot of real estate on your quilt. So if you're going to put all that time and effort into them, you want to put them in some place where they're going to show. So you want to put them in a solid fabric. You can use a matching thread, or you could use a contrasting thread, but you want to put them where they're going to show. If you put them in a print fabric, they're not going to show very well, and then you've gone to a lot of work and a lot of time, and you've got something that isn't visible unless you're up really close. Even if you use a contrasting thread, if your fabric's really busy, you're not going to see them. So that's one thing you might want to consider. Okay, another thing I would do, I'm going to make an outline, a 1/4 inch outline here, and then I'm going to do about 1 inch in another 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to do a feather going like this. And again, I'm just using a basic formal feather. You could do any kind of feather in here you like. And you can space this out more if you want, if you don't like these long feathers. This works well in smaller blocks. This is a pretty good size, I think. How big is this? This is 11 inches, so that's a pretty 11 by 10.5, so it's not exactly square, but that's a pretty big section. So you could do that, and then in here you could do a filler. You could do pebbles or circles. You could do a meander back and forth. Or if you like circles, I would do large circles in here. Or you could do a herringbone. Wrap my mind around how this is going to go. There we go. Since I'm drawing upside down, I gotta get my brain to switch here.